All right, hi, my name is Zach Hearn,
I'm Benjamin Hoare.
and we're going to talk to you about the work we've done on the edible campus concept over the last 10 weeks. So the idea is UCLA as a university is on an urban setting, urban environment. So we're pretty landlocked, but we do have a little bit of green space, so we'd like to utilize this green space to grow edible shrubs, plants, trees, and all that. So one reason we have 40% food insecure students, so that's one big reason to do this. Another one is just to cut out a lot of the middlemen. So it's definitely sustainable. That's the whole point of this program. So we can cut out the fuel needed to transport it. We can cut out plastic waste and packaging, apples and all that, which is just redundant really. We can cut out like a lot of waste and cost in growing our own food. So we're going to talk about kind of like what we've come up with and what we've worked on over the last 10 weeks to kind of like make UCLA an edible campus in general. So we're obviously not the first to do this. We have inspirations. So a couple of the universities we've looked at are the University of North Carolina, UPenn in Philadelphia, as well as UC Santa Barbara and Arizona State University. So we really like the last two because obviously UCSB is in Southern California. ASU is also a pretty arid climate, arid environment. So those are both good models to look at. Obviously we want to do a little bit more and a little bit different, but those were good starts. And then this is a depiction. There was a news article, a news video about ASU's program. So I think also implementing this program, we can kind of like get the news out, and it's a good look for UCLA. So a lot of times we'll be referencing these four schools and kind of like what they do, what we want to do differently, what we want to add on top of that. And also we're not starting at nothing really. So UCLA currently has edible fruits and plants already on campus, and we've mapped them out on this slide right here. So this is not a complete list. A lot of the foods we currently have are niche, so I think when they were planted, they weren't designed to be this. The concept wasn't an edible campus concept at first. They either looked good, or in the case of avocado trees, everyone loves avocados. So you can see we've mapped out the pineapple, guavas, the 3 avocado trees, if you want to take a look. The olive trees, we've got quite a few olive trees. Citrus, common fig, date palm, and blackberry. So again, like maybe besides citrus and avocado, we all know what to do with that. You make guacamole, but the rest of them, like date palms, blackberry, common figs, there's not a lot, I guess myself, and I think a lot of y'all wouldn't really know what to do with those. So we kind of want to involve more bulk foods and more whole foods that we can use, but we also have plans for what we currently have on campus. So it's not a total loss, but we want to implement a little bit more. But first, we'll talk about what we currently want to do with these foods.
Yeah, so just kind of gathering the data of what we have on campus, approximate numbers of the plants and yields and selling prices. So as you can see, these numbers aren't incredibly substantial other than presumably we can make a lot of olive oil. I mean, there's processing costs there. But we think that we can bring in about $10,000 of revenue in olive oil with 2,000 kilograms of olives, about 3 kilograms per liter of olive oil, and about $15 per liter of olive oil. And the other things you see, they're not bringing in a ton of money. And like Zach said, this isn't like an exhaustive list. There's lots of other smaller foods, more niche foods that I didn't include on here. We kind of included the foods that we thought were relatively easy to manage and work with and people might know what to do. But there's also like a huge list of other edible foods like natal plums, hollyleaf cherries, elderberries, California black walnut, sages, lemongrass. And we didn't include those, one, because like I said, the average person might not know what to do with it. And some of them are also actually really toxic. So natal plums are supposed to be really good, but we don't. Yeah, so you need somebody professionally to process it, basically.
And along that line, so we've talked with, Bonnie put us in contact with Jason Tingley, who's the head chef at Luskin. So he already uses a couple of the fruits and plants on campus in the Luskin kitchen. So he's a good person to have that actually knows what to do with these kind of like niche foods and how to use them. Another idea put forth by them was kind of for our donors. So Ben will talk a little bit about the idea behind the donations, but we're going to gift. Luskin Kitchen has a lot of donors, so gifting them, let's say with like UCLA made olive oil or different types of like cool jams or whatever we make, can be a good idea for the donors. Also, we've seen, I believe, at Arizona State University, they put out this PDF of kind of recipes that people can use with the food actually on campus. So I think Jason Tingley, if he wanted to get involved, could put something together with what we can do with date palms or common figs and all that. So there's a lot to do with the niche food we have on campus.
Yeah, so speaking of niche foods, and we're thinking of maybe the most useful uses of them are to give them to donors or to increase like our donations through making donors happy. So I was curious if that actually works. Does receiving gifts actually make people donate more? And the answer is kind of counterintuitive. I found in the Journal of Economic Psychology, this is a paper from Yale, that this was their kind of prediction. They expected more thank yous or gifts based on giving gifts, and they actually found that giving gifts tends to reduce donations. And the reason they do that is they say a lot of people give out of altruism, and this kind of reduces the feeling of altruism when you give something if you're expecting to immediately receive something back. So two things we could do to mitigate that is one, it's a surprise gift. We don't like say like you donate this and you get it. Or two, which is kind of counterintuitive to what I just said, but you make a group. You can make like an olive oil donors group, and like you can have a trophy olive oil or something you give to donors so that they're put in a bracket of like certain levels of donors. So it's kind of different than like just saying you give and you get this back. You get kind of like a prestige thing about it too. Oh, this is still me. So yeah, and another thing we would want to do, but it's going to be difficult to do with the current foods that we have on campus, is give to the food bank. So I don't remember if Zach had mentioned it earlier, but approximately 40% of the students at UCLA are food insecure. So we're looking at foods on campus, and you hear that number, it's nearly impossible to not immediately think like, what can we do to give back to the students on campus? So we're going to talk about what we can do further, but with what we have, I mean, maybe we can give some of like the fresh herbs we have on campus, like lemongrass, sage, rosemary, maybe some small bottles of olive oil, because you can't even really get started cooking without oil typically. And just things to generally add a little bit more nutrition and freshness to the food closet to help students. So we can see here that this is from the food closet that they have, they take raw bulk foods. So we just kind of want to improve upon that. We can give a little bit now, but we would really like to sort of further that goal going forward.
And kind of to achieve that goal, we want bulkier whole foods. So we're kind of looking at what can we grow on campus. So first off, in Southern California, you want it to be either low or moderate water requirements. So we've kind of made this depiction here where 1 water droplet is low water requirements, whereas 2 is moderate and 3 is high. So we try to stick to the low to moderate. Also, they need to be able to sustain hot and arid conditions, which kind of goes along with that. So the ideas or the plants and foods we've come up with are sweet potatoes, spinach, carrots, asparagus, as well as artichoke, cauliflower, blueberries, avocado trees, so that's the one high water requirement, but we already have them and we know it's possible. Quinoa, chickpeas, lentils, and grapes. So we've also put the price per pound, so that can either be our student savings if they want to use the food closet and take these foods, or it can be if we have excess of one or the other, we can go again to the like Westwood Food Market and we can kind of like advertise this as UCLA grown foods. In order to do that, we need a place to put them. So right now, all of the niche foods are kind of spread out around campus. There's a couple like nooks and crannies where I think they're more densely located. So we've kind of, with the help of Bonnie, located 2 positions or 2 locations where I think it'd be useful to put these new gardens. So one of them is in the Sunset Recreation Center in Northwest Campus. So they already have some of the avocado trees, the citrus trees. So that's a prime location that's already existing and we can add more, as well as a little bit northwest of Drake Stadium. There's a lot of like green space there. And another benefit to this location is we're going to talk about the harvesting method, which is going to be the hardest part of this whole plan. But students are going to inevitably have to be involved on a campus. So that's close to the hill and close to the undergraduate dorms. So we think the easier it is for these students to get there and help, and the lower activation barrier, it'll be better for these students to help us. So I think those are 2 locations. We can do one, we can do both. But I think those are good areas to start.
Yeah, so the idea of generally how we're actually going to maintain them is twofold. Initially, we're definitely going to need some administrative or infrastructural support. So people like Bonnie and Justin Weiser, who's the director of custodial and grounds we met, who's very nice and seems very on board with helping us with this. These are UCLA students. So like initially, we're going to need people that sort of have a staff and a crew to help us get the ball rolling on a kind of harvesting the existing stuff, because like we've said, it's very spread out and not very concentrated on campus. But in the future, just based on precedent and the fact that we're at campus and there's tons of free hands around, presumably, we'd like to go with more student involvement. And I think Bonnie has mentioned that having students do it has been challenging because they move on. You have to constantly replenish the pool, but we think UCLA is well suited to the idea of student upkeep. One, because it's a really high-level university, which means lots of people are going to be applying to good things, lots of pre-meds. So both through altruistic and cynical reasons, people will want to put like sustainability, helping others in their campus on their resume. Oh, and yeah, so how, sorry, we had to change a little bit around, but community involvement. So basically, how do we actually get people involved? So word of mouth and flyers don't really work, we don't think. One, because word of mouth is really slow. Two, flyers, everyone's looking at their phone, so no one's looking at flyers that much, I don't think. So we're gonna have to establish a social media presence in Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. And we also think having a good website would really help establish credibility, and then bring in more people further helps establish credibility. So having just like a good online presence should just be like a reciprocal loop of gaining sort of people to help us, and sort of gain credibility. So UNC actually has a really good website that we enjoyed, because not only do they tell you like generally what the edible campus concept is about, but they have a calendar of events, they have a blog that people can post on, and it's just a lot of good information sort of centralized in one place, so you don't have to just search through a bunch of social media posts or sort of scattered information generally. And in conclusion, so what we've kind of realized at this point is that most of the foods we have on campus are fairly niche, and Zach had mentioned Jason Tingley at Luskin, so I think theoretically Jason Tingley could have a field day and Luskin could get some good press with UCLA grown foods that are used in the restaurant, maybe give some to donors. But the number that really sticks with us is the number of food insecure students we have. So our idea going forward is, yeah, we want to use the stuff we already have, but if we're going to go forward with this concept, we kind of want to have a centralized area to grow food and then hopefully give back to the students.
So lastly, we'd like to thank everyone that's helped us out and has made this possible. So obviously Bonnie has been a wealth of knowledge and she's been very helpful. Professor Braybrook has been insightful. Tammy for making this program run as smoothly as it has. And then obviously Paula and Professor Pilon for making this program exist. So thank you. And with that, we can take any questions you have.
Wow, for 3 seconds to spare.
We weren't prepared.